In the vibrant heart of Accra, where the sun kisses the red earth and the city buzzes with endless motion, lived a young woman named Amma. She was 26 years old, tall and slender, with rich dark brown skin, a kind oval face, and expressive almond-shaped eyes that seemed to carry both hope and sadness. Her hair was braided neatly into cornrows, ending in small brown beads that clicked gently when she walked. Her clothes were modest, a faded blue blouse with frayed sleeves and a long beige skirt that had seen better days. On her feet were worn sandals, the soles thinning out from all the walking. Amma was not lazy. She was not irresponsible. In fact, she had graduated with honors from the University of Ghana 2 years earlier, studying business administration. But ever since then, life had refused to open its doors to her. The promises of good jobs after graduation had dissolved into silence. Every morning, Amma left her tiny rented room in Nima, one of Accra's oldest neighborhoods, to walk the streets in search of a job. The roads were dusty that morning as the sun rose over the Makola market, painting the sky in hues of gold and orange. Vendors were shouting the prices of fruits and vegetables, while taxis honked their horns in the usual chaos. The scent of fried plantain and grilled tilapia filled the air. Among the crowd, Amma moved with quiet determination, a small stack of CVS carefully folded inside a plastic folder she hugged against her chest. She stopped at every kiosk, store, and small office that looked like it could use help. "Good morning," she would say, her voice polite and hopeful. "I'm looking for any work you may have. I studied business. I can help with management, records, customer service, anything." But the answer was almost always the same: "Sorry, we're not hiring." Or worse, "You need connections in this town." Amma smiled each time, even when rejection stung. She didn't let it show. Her mother had taught her that strength wasn't about hiding your tears but about walking forward even when you're crying inside. By 11 a.m., the heat had become unbearable. Sweat gathered at her temples and her blouse stuck to her back. Still, she didn't stop. She believed that if she just kept moving, one day, something would change. As she passed a small roadside food stall where a group of men were playing cards and laughing loudly, she felt a pang in her stomach. She hadn't eaten since the night before. Her last Sadie's had gone to printing more CVS. But still, she kept going. A group of school children brushed past her on the narrow sidewalk, giggling and jostling one another. Amma smiled at them, despite her hunger. It reminded her of the time when she too had dreams full of light. In that moment, she paused and looked up at the tall buildings in the distance. Somewhere in those buildings, decisions were being made. Jobs were being given. Lives were being changed. She whispered to herself, "God, please, just one opportunity." But the city didn't answer. Only the sound of a distant trotro honk and the hum of traffic replied. Still, she didn't give up. She continued walking, strong, proud, and full of dignity, even if the world had not yet recognized her worth. Little did Amma know, fate had already begun to stir behind the curtains of her ordinary day. Amma walked aimlessly, her feet aching after hours of trying to secure a job. The sun had climbed high, and the heat was beginning to feel unbearable. She wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand, hoping for some relief, but none came. The streets were as busy as ever. The vendors shouted out prices, the traffic honked in frustration, and the city's pulse continued without mercy. As she walked past a small stretch of road lined with old buildings, Amma noticed an elderly man struggling under the weight of a heavy sack. His movements were slow, almost stumbling, and the bag seemed far too heavy for him. He leaned heavily on a wooden walking stick, trying his best to maintain his balance as he made his way down the uneven sidewalk. His shoulders hunched forward, and his gray hair was unruly, sticking out from beneath a worn-out hat. Without a second thought, Amma felt a tug at her heart. She couldn't ignore him, not when he looked so fragile. Despite her exhaustion and hunger, she rushed to his side. "Excuse me, sir," Amma said, her voice soft but filled with concern. "Let me help you with that." The elderly man looked up at her with tired, deep-set eyes, his weathered face creased with years of hardship. "I'm fine, young lady," he muttered, his voice shaky. But Amma was already lifting the heavy sack from his frail shoulders. With a gentle smile, Amma said, "No, you're not fine. Let me help you." The old man hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you," he said with a sigh, a sense of relief washing over him. His deep wrinkles softened, and a grateful look spread across his face as he handed her the sack. Amma lifted it with ease, though it weighed a good amount. Together, they walked slowly down the road, the old man leaning on his cane for support while Amma carried his load. As they walked, the man spoke to her, his voice surprisingly kind despite the roughness of age. "You have a kind heart," he said, his voice raspy. "Most people would ignore an old man like me. But you," he paused, his eyes glinting with something unspoken. "You remind me of someone. A person who once did good for others, no matter the cost." Amma smiled, her brown eyes softening. "I believe that kindness is free," she replied. "And in a city like this, it's even more valuable. I just hope I can find something to do with my life soon. I've been struggling." The old man's gaze lingered on her, and for a moment, he seemed to be seeing more than just the young woman in front of him. There was a knowing look in his eyes, one that spoke of wisdom and years lived. "You will," he said quietly. "Your heart is pure, and the world needs more people like you. Just keep walking forward, and everything will change." Amma felt a strange warmth spread through her chest, as if something larger than herself had just whispered in her ear. She looked at the old man, but he seemed to have grown quieter, lost in thought. As they approached a small intersection, Amma stopped, glancing up at him. "Do you need help getting somewhere?" she asked. But when she turned to look back at him, he was gone. "Strange," she murmured to herself. She looked around for a moment, but there was no sign of him. Her heart raced slightly. Had she imagined him? The whole encounter felt surreal. She stood there for a moment, staring at the empty road where he had been, wondering if it was some sort of sign. But then, the reality of her life quickly set back in. She had to keep moving. As Amma resumed her walk down the street, she couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, this was the start of something big. Little did she know, the man she had just helped wasn't just any old man, he was someone who would change her life forever. The next few days were a blur for Amma. She spent her time visiting various businesses in Accra, trying to find any opportunity, but each time, the answer was the same: "Sorry, we're not hiring right now." Her hope began to fade. She couldn't shake the feeling that the kindness she had shown Mr. Kwabena, the elderly man she had helped, was somehow connected to something larger than herself. But life moved on, and she was stuck in the same routine. On the fourth day after the encounter, Amma sat in the small, modest cafe near the market where she often stopped to rest. She had just bought a cup of tea and sat at the corner table, staring out the window at the busy street. She was exhausted. Her shoulders felt heavy with the weight of uncertainty, and her stomach growled, reminding her of the long hours she had spent searching for work. As she sipped her tea, she noticed a figure standing just outside the cafe, looking in through the window. It was the same elderly man, Mr. Kwabena. He wasn't leaning on his cane this time. His posture was straight, and his face wore a look of determination. Amma's heart skipped a beat. Her instinct was to call out to him, but something held her back. It was strange to see him again after their brief encounter. And why was he looking at her like that? As if he had been waiting for something. She hesitated for a moment before getting up and walking toward the door. As she stepped outside, she called his name softly. "Mr. Kwabena." The elderly man turned around slowly, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. His face was still weathered, but his eyes held a sharpness that Amma hadn't noticed before. "Ah, Amma," he said, his voice low but warm. "I've been looking for you." Amma's heart raced. "Looking for me? Why?" He paused for a moment before speaking. "I saw something in you when we met. A kind heart and determination, despite the hardships you face. I want to offer you an opportunity." Amma blinked, trying to process what he was saying. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm the CEO of Kwabena Enterprises, one of the largest companies in Accra. And I've been searching for someone with your qualities to join my team. Not as just an employee, but as a partner." His eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time, Amma saw the depth of what he was offering. Her mind raced. "A partner? CEO? Was this real? You've been struggling, haven't you?" he asked, almost as if reading her thoughts. I want to help you. Not just with a job, but with a chance to change your life. The company has many projects, and I believe someone like you can help us grow, not just from the outside, but from within. Emma stood there, stunned. The man she had helped, the man she had given a moment of kindness to, was offering her the very thing she had been searching for. A chance at a new life. Are you sure? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She still couldn't believe what was happening. Yes, I'm sure. I've seen your potential. You just needed someone to see it too. Now, I'm offering you a chance. Emma swallowed hard. This was more than she could have ever dreamed. But there was something about Mr. Kwabina's demeanor that gave her confidence. It wasn't just the offer of a job, it was the way he spoke to her, the trust he had in her. She felt she could do this. She could finally make a difference. Yes, she said, her voice firm now. I'll accept your offer. Thank you. Mr. Kwabina's face broke into a wide grin. I knew you would. Let's get started right away. There's a lot to be done. As Emma followed him into the building next door, Kwabina Enterprises, her mind was filled with a mix of emotions, excitement, fear, disbelief. She had no idea what the future would hold, but she was ready for it. She had been given a chance, and now she had to prove herself. As they entered the sleek, modern office building, the world outside seemed to fade away. Emma's journey had just begun, and she knew it would be filled with challenges. But now, she had something she hadn't had before, hope. Emma could hardly sleep the night before. Her mind replayed everything Mr. Kwabina had said to her. The excitement of a new chapter and the pressure to prove herself weighed heavily on her shoulders. She rose early, even before the sun fully lit the streets of Accra. She carefully ironed the only formal outfit she owned, a navy blue blouse and a long black skirt, and tied her braids neatly behind her head. She looked in the mirror and whispered to herself, "You've got this." When she arrived at Kwabina Enterprises, a tall, modern glass-front building nestled between colonial structures and modern cafes, her palms were sweating. She stood before the glass door, took a deep breath, and pushed it open. The receptionist greeted her kindly and ushered her upstairs. As she stepped out of the elevator, she saw Mr. Kwabina already waiting by the door, not in his usual worn-out attire but in a sharp grey suit. Mr. Kwabina smiled warmly and gestured for her to come in. "Good morning, Emma," he said, his voice steady. "Welcome to your new beginning." Emma bowed her head slightly. "Thank you again, sir. I'll give it my best." Mr. Kwabina nodded. "I don't doubt that. You'll start by shadowing one of our department leads. You'll learn the structure of the business, how we serve clients, and eventually, you'll help me on key projects." As they walked down the hallway, glass-walled offices lined each side, and employees dressed in professional attire moved briskly from one department to another. Emma felt both inspired and intimidated. They entered a meeting room, where a few senior staff members were waiting. Among them was Kojo, 35, medium build, dark brown skin, short clean-cut hair, trimmed beard, glasses, wearing a beige suit, the head of project management. He stood up and greeted Emma warmly. "Welcome to the team," he said, extending his hand. "I've heard a lot about you already." Emma shook his hand, surprised but flattered. The orientation began. Kojo walked her through the current company projects, the departments involved, and the company's mission to train and empower underprivileged youth in Ghana. Emma listened attentively, taking notes with care. Later that day, Mr. Kwabina invited Emma into his office, a bright space filled with books, local artwork, and a large window overlooking the city. He sat across from her, his face calm. "I didn't help you just because of that day at the roadside," he said gently. "I've built this company with the vision to help people who remind me of where I came from. I see that same spark in you." Emma felt tears threaten the corners of her eyes but blinked them away. "Don't let your past hold you back. You have the strength to lead." She nodded, deeply moved. She knew that this was more than just a job. It was a calling. And with that knowledge, she felt her confidence begin to grow. Weeks passed like a dream for Emma. Her days at Kwabina Enterprises became her sanctuary. She arrived early, stayed late, and absorbed everything like a sponge. Each project she participated in gave her more confidence, and the once jobless, uncertain woman was slowly becoming a respected member of the company. Despite the newness of the environment, Emma's humility and work ethic never went unnoticed. She was often praised by her supervisors for her attention to detail and the thoughtful way she approached problems. Kojo especially became one of her biggest supporters. He encouraged her to speak up in meetings and gradually entrusted her with more responsibilities. One Friday morning, Emma was preparing documents for a boardroom presentation when Mr. Kwabena walked in. But today, he wasn't alone. Beside him was Mrs. Ageman, 60, light brown-skinned, round face, short curly grey hair, wearing a purple Kent dress with gold earrings, a respected businesswoman and member of the board. Emma quickly stood up and greeted them both with a warm smile. "Emma," Mr. Kwabena said gently, "would like you to be part of today's strategic session. You've earned a seat at the table." Emma froze for a second. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. "Sir, I'm honored," she said, heart pounding. During the meeting, as charts and plans filled the screen, Emma offered ideas that impressed everyone. Her clarity of thought and understanding of youth empowerment programs even drew nods from Mrs. Ageman, who was notoriously hard to please. After the presentation, Mrs. Ageman approached Mr. Kwabena in private. "Where did you find this gem?" she asked, smiling. Mr. Kwabena looked out the window thoughtfully. "On the side of the road." And then, that afternoon, Mr. Kwabena did something he hadn't done before. He gathered the entire team into the main hall of the building. Everyone stood in a semicircle, confused but intrigued. "I want to tell you all a story," he began. "A few months ago, I walked the streets of Accra pretending to be just another tired, old man. Not to test anyone, but because I needed to remember something." He paused. "One hot afternoon, I collapsed by the side of the road. People passed by. Some stared. Some mocked. But only one person stopped. She didn't have a job, she barely had enough for food, but she gave me water and her time." Gasps rippled through the room. All eyes turned toward Emma. "Yes," he continued, smiling. "It was Emma." Tears welled in Emma's eyes as the realization washed over her. "That day," Mr. Kwabena added, "she reminded me what leadership means. Not degrees. Not experience. But heart. And today, I want to announce that Emma will be joining our leadership training program, with a full scholarship and personal mentorship under me." The room erupted in applause. Kojo walked over and gave her a warm handshake. "You deserve this." For the first time in years, Emma no longer felt like a victim of life's harsh turns. She stood tall, not just as an employee, but as a symbol of hope. Months passed since Emma's life took its unexpected turn. Every day at Kwabena Enterprises felt like a blessing, a life she had once only dreamed of. But beyond the titles, responsibilities, and recognition, what changed the most was the way Emma now walked through life, with quiet confidence and unshakable humility. It was a sunny morning in Accra. Birds chirped along tree-lined streets as Emma arrived at a newly constructed community development center, one she had helped design. Today was special. Mr. Kwabena had appointed her as the Youth Development Coordinator, a position created just for her. The goal? Help train and support jobless youth, people just like she had once been. The center buzzed with young men and women, their faces full of hope. Emma moved among them, answering questions, encouraging their ideas, and reminding them that greatness begins in the heart, not the resume. Later that afternoon, under the shaded veranda, Mr. Kwabena joined her. He watched as she mentored a small group of interns. A proud smile crept across his face. "You were always meant to lead," Mr. Kwabena said quietly. Emma turned to him and smiled. "You believed in me before I could believe in myself." Mr. Kwabena chuckled. "No. You believed in others when they gave you no reason to. That is real leadership." As they sat, the sun began to set over the city skyline, casting golden hues over the center. The sky painted with orange and pink, it was a picture of new beginnings. Suddenly, Kojo arrived, carrying a folder. He waved and approached. "We just received approval for the Youth Entrepreneurship Grant," Kojo said, handing the document to Emma. Her eyes widened. "This will help hundreds of people." Kojo nodded. "And you made it happen." She opened the folder, glancing through the pages, but her eyes filled with tears. "I was once just a jobless woman walking the streets of Accra," she whispered. "Now, I get to help others write a different story." Behind her, the sounds of laughter and hope continued to rise from the center. Lives were already changing. Mr. Kwabena leaned back, arms folded behind his head. And to think it all started with a bottle of water. They all laughed. The kind of laugh that echoed gratitude. As the sky darkened and the stars began to show, Amma looked around the center, the young people, her mentors, and smiled. She no longer needed to search for purpose, she was living it. Life has a way of hiding blessings in the most unexpected places. Amma was jobless and overlooked, yet chose kindness over bitterness. Her simple act of helping a tired old man changed her life forever. Mr. Kwabena saw what most people miss, a heart full of compassion. This story reminds us that your situation today doesn't define your destiny. Kindness, integrity, and humility are seeds that life never ignores. If you've ever doubted your worth, let Amma's journey remind you, your breakthrough might be one kind act away. Share this story to inspire someone who feels forgotten. You never know who needs to hear this today. Thank you for watching.